this PowerPoint is going to do two things. So one, it's going to introduce you to residencies, several types that are available to artists, and it's also going to set up your next assignment for senior seminar. Okay, so this grade will be basically 10 points of your total grade, as is each assignment for senior seminar. And we're going to be covering a lot of territory here. So I'm going to break up this lecture into several parts over several videos. So we're going to cover a lot of different residencies and types of residencies. We're going to focus in on these. And we're going to basically be exploring the types of local, regional, national, and international residencies that are available to artists pursuing them. So this is going to lead into an assignment for you guys to practice writing a project proposal. And remember that there's this big word requirement, right? Like for the writing and senior seminar, which the component is 3,500 to 5,000 words required to graduate from senior seminar. I'm being a little lenient on the word requirement. Like I said at the top of the class, instead of writing a thesis, I'm asking that you choose, instead of that, that you choose a residency that you research very well and you imagine a series of works that you could work on. And then you'll share your project with the class, much like you guys did with the Pechacuchas. So you're going to create a PowerPoint about 10 images, and it's going to detail your project, share the opportunity that you've chosen to apply to. I'm not really making you apply, but I'm going to give you a list of resources that you can use to find and apply to opportunities. You're going to write an imaginary project and share it in your PowerPoint, and you're going to divulge what you discovered about the residency. You're going to use images to explain what the residency is about and what you would undertake if you were chosen for it. So I hope all of that makes sense. Okay, we're going to cover all the components of writing an application for a residency. This pertains to writing an application for a grant for money as well. So you'll get assistance from me and practice from the process. So it includes the submission of this PowerPoint with each of these components that are detailed on this slide. This is the actual project that you guys are going to do. So you'll submit a cover letter that you include in the PowerPoint, a project narrative included, a budget, and a resume. I'll talk more about each of these. So I'm sure many of you know by now, maybe some don't. What's the difference? What is a grant? What is a residency? What's the difference between each? So the thing to remember is that grants, really, they fund research. They fund a particular project or a series that you might create by giving you money for a particular body of work. And they normally have a specific start date and end date for you to complete your project by. And if you go over that date, then you don't get the money that you've applied for. They might sometimes fund an exhibition as well. Residencies, or sometimes they're called artist in residence programs, offer artists, academics, writers, and curators workspace. So it's really about getting space to create work in. So it supports their practices. In the case of artists, the residency offers studio space and also exposure to creative individuals or professionals in the art field. So what's the purpose of getting them? So we're speaking about grants and residencies. You guys are particularly going to be focusing in on your project on residencies, but just to kind of continue along the lines of what each of these things is. So both of them, they provide you the space, time, and critique that you need to strengthen your work. Residencies particularly sustain your practice in the event that your work is not selling to the public. This is really a key thing to remember. So, if you're an artist who decides that you want to make work that's more experimental or challenging than what you would show in kind of a conservative, like static white cube space, what you think of as a conservative gallery space or commercial setting. Like a lot of us, I think by now we know that some of the artwork that seems to sell is like what you would think of as corporate artwork or maybe commission artwork for bank lobbies or hotels or whatever other corporate spaces. And if you're interested in making work that's more challenging, it might not sell. So grants and residencies are a way to fund work that you might make in the future, especially if you want to make work that's experimental and types of work that are more challenging. Okay, so one of them, just to talk about real quickly in general, one such residency that I'm sure that you guys all know is the Goodyear Arts Residency. Just to say a little bit about that before I jump into some of the more international residency opportunities, Goodyear Arts began in 2014 as the Skyline Residency Program, and their aim, which is a really fabulous undertaking, it's to put artists into underused buildings. So it was a thing that they really did in order to work with some of the local real estate projects here in the city, especially the ones that were in uptown Charlotte, kind of east of like what is it, 7th Street, and some of those unused buildings. And they were working with people who owned the buildings to make it look like the buildings were still being used and they weren't vacant. And so they didn't want those areas to kind of deteriorate and collapse and be exposed to vandalism. So it was really a win-win because artists got to use the spaces temporarily. I think at the beginning of their residency program, it was for about 2 weeks, a 2-week period. And then the owners of the buildings were happy because the spaces looked occupied. And then they'd have an opening and they'd still be bringing, a certain number of the public into those spaces and into that part of uptown. They got the name Goodyear from the Goodyear Tire Company, one of the first buildings that they occupied. And even though they've had other locations since then, they've inherited the name. So this is the space that they're in now in Camp North End is like the third donated location that they've had, I believe. So, and really the space is recognized, it's become recognized for being a local enterprise, but still they're showing high quality art that wouldn't be behind, like a glass case at a museum. Okay, so to kind of continue on this idea of what residencies are for is a continuation of the idea that the best art, the art that's really doing groundbreaking things and making people think is not necessarily the kind of work that sells, that that your mom and your dad and like the non art kind of public thinks is good work. So I'm just going to show you a couple of images from a visit to New York that a couple of students and I did, a group of students and I did back in, what was it, I think 2015 by now. So this is from a past job and a past life of mine when I worked at the University of South Dakota. There is this really cool opportunity for students and professors and many of us to travel to New York. The college foundation at University of South Dakota offered an incredible opportunity for everyone to engage with contemporary painters in New York City. So the foundation provided a fully funded trip, like everything included, including the hotel accommodations, including meals, including drinks at dinner for 8 students and 2 professors to fly to New York City and then meet with this like mega wealthy art collector who was a University of South Dakota alumnus. And he had us come over to visit at his Upper East Side condo near Central Park, see his art collection, and it was an unbelievable art collection that had like Ai Weiwei ceramics in it and Marilyn Minter paintings, and it was just this like really crazy blue chip, like top tier art collection. with some of the biggest names in the art world. And then he invited us to have several meals with him and artists, and to visit their studios. And because he was so kind of rich and owned several pieces by each artist, the artists were really like doing anything at his beck and call whenever he wanted. They were sort of like on call for him, and he'd say, "I want you to meet with this group of students," and they would say, "Yes, like what time?" And then they'd show up and meet with us. But the reason that I mentioned this is that about this time, and it wasn't like I was right out of grad school, but I still was kind of new to teaching and only out of grad school for a couple of years. But this experience gave me a little perspective into like the good and the bad of the commercial art world. So it gave me a perspective on how the most successful artists have to court relations with their collectors, and it honestly didn't look all that fun. Um, there's this is just these are some photos of us all in the space of a couple of contemporary painters. There's this guy Aaron, who was a photographer, Raina, a painter, Amy, a grad student sculptor, Tramika, a printmaker, and others. And this is our host artist, Francesco Clemente, um, who hosted us in his Brooklyn studio, and you can see like how amazing this studio space is. It was like upper level, huge windows with some of his past artworks up on the wall, and then he had like a workspace with tables and easels, all set out for him. So the studio space was incredible, and he was an amazing host and a really amazing guy. But it was interesting that too, when we were around the collector that was funding all of this opportunity, he acted a little cagey, he couldn't quite share or like discuss some of the more subversive elements, which were like anti-capitalist elements of his work in front of the collector. And there was also this minute when we were going from one studio to another artist studio, where we were riding with the collector, like in a van, a car service that he hired, and he was sitting with us, and he was flipping through a catalog of this famous artist Jose Parla's works, and talking about how he started a collection for his son and bought him his first painting. And the first painting was like $50,000 for this Jose Parla painting for his son. And his son's like still a teenager. And he was saying it like all of us could relate to this. So it just like showed the amount of like money and influence that the collector had. These are just a couple more images of like Francesco Clemente here, and in the inside of the studio space. We were all having to like wear name tags when we did this trip, so that they didn't forget any of our names after we left. So just a little more kind of insight into this experience. We met with a contemporary painter whose star was really like on the rise. He was out of grad school and had a solo show coming up at Lehman Mopan, one of the big galleries in New York. And he shared with us the work that he made for the exhibition. And we met as a group with him, and the collector kind of stood off to the side, and Angel Otero was like performing for all of us. And I'm mentioning this because maybe for many of you guys, again, like you might not be aware of the alternative kind of opportunities that residencies afford an artist, so that they don't have to be, like minding their P's and Q's in front of a collector, or making work that only sells on the market. And I'm not saying this to like disparage anybody. It's just that like during this experience, I got a kind of a fuller picture of what all of this whole song and dance entails. So the collector had Angel Otero meet with us at the gallery. He talked about about the works that he made for the exhibition. He looks really happy in the photos. In person, though, he seemed nervous. He was like, I don't know, like kind of stuttering his way through. Looked like he was really trying to perform for John, the collector. And again, so this does not have to be the only kind of life and experience that a professional artist experiences. Um, so, if this is not the kind of thing that you would want to do, then writing for grant opportunities, obtaining residencies can be a great alternative to like like a straight up gallery career if you're interested in it. You don't have to play this kind of courtship game with collectors, and entertaining their friends at dinner, etc. And doing the whole performance. This I'm just showing you guys this for fun. Like this is kind of a goofy picture of all of us. It's like that college brochure type of picture. They like promote the school with. I actually miss a lot of these people quite a lot. They were an amazing group of students and colleagues. And um, so, anyway, a little bit about that, but I think you get the idea there. So, let's jump into talking about which opportunity would be right for you. I think the best thing to do is remember that a lot of this information is stuff that, yes, you can use right out of college, but grants and actually residencies provide a fantastic opportunity for when you're going through maybe like a period of transition from school to work. So maybe when you have a little bit of like open time, you can undertake a residency for a month or two to help you get on your feet while you apply to other opportunities like work opportunities. So a lot of people do residencies after they get out of their BFA and then before they go into their MFA. Aaliyah Chapin actually talked about how she did one during her MFA, which is a little bit more unusual, or you might do one after your MFA to get on your feet. So that's kind of like the time that people do them. But when you're choosing a residency to apply to, you're going to want to think about several things. So, one is what do you require to make your best work? Um, there might be the issue of remoteness, and I'm showing here in this slide several different types of residencies. There's ones that are like in a cabin in a national park. There's actually a residency on the lightning fields in New Mexico. Some are on Fire Island in a gay community. Some are like this one on an island in the middle of a lake in the middle of nowhere, where like literally nobody can get to you, and they have to row a boat up to where the residency is housed and where you are, and it's only one person at a time. Some are in Australia, like off the grid, with like only solar energy for powering electricity, and gas for cooking and hot water, and like literally no internet, so you can be in total isolation. So you need to think about that. Like, do you want to be part of a community or not? Do you want isolation? Do you want to collaborate? Those are important factors. Some of these residencies, kind of like the Goodyear one, and then ones that are bigger on a national and an international level, will afford immersive experiences. So sometimes the residency offers a community aspect that perhaps would replicate the experience that you got in school, or they're for people who perhaps graduated from grad school and they miss it. They miss the experience of being around people talking about art and having critiques and conversation and perhaps talking about critical theory. So, some of these residencies provide a community aspect that recreates that experience of being in school. I know for you guys right now, it's impossible to like imagine an experience of like wanting to be back in school, because all you see right now, I bet, is the finish line. But there are places like this, and that's part of the component of doing a good residency too. Okay. All right. So before I wrap up this segment, I'm just going to show you guys three examples um, of international residencies. So these are all ones that you would be eligible for, like as of now. You could apply to these tomorrow if you wanted to. I'm not sure of the exact deadlines, but really they're just looking for um, any artist of, you know, any stripe to apply. And so I'm going to share with you guys the American Academy in Rome, Chateau Orcovo, and the Des Ateliers program in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. So these are kind of like the creme de la creme, like really incredible opportunities that are fully funded. You know, thing to remember with residencies is depending on which ones you apply to, the opportunity can be fully funded. Like they might provide you a stipend of $1,000 or $2,000 and then give you free workspace and sometimes living accommodations too. Not all of them. There's a whole spectrum of like different types of residencies, so you have to be careful to read the fine print. But with the Rome Prize, this is again an international opportunity. It's kind of like one of the best opportunities that an artist could get. You live in Rome. I think it's a couple of months long. They offer 30 artists and scholars who represent the highest standard of excellence. So they're selecting you based on merit, and they want people who are in the early and middle stages of their career. I mean, you can see how nice it is inside the academy. Like this is just one of the studio spaces, like with a workspace with these windows overlooking the hills of Rome and a skylight. It's just one example of a resident studio interior. So this might be like a pinnacle experience, one that's very competitive, very difficult to get, but here's some details on it. They offer free studio space for a year. They even offer to put up family members that you might be traveling with accommodations so that they can stay in Rome for free while you work. So they're offering both studio and living space in Rome. They provide materials. It's very prestigious and kind of top of the game. Some of you guys, you might be a little young for this, but you might know people who went to Rome on one of the trips. I think it may have been 2 years ago now, but the students actually on the UNCC trip visited the American Academy in Rome, and they met Beverly McKeever, who's a professor at Duke University. And we almost had her come in to visit a couple semesters ago, but she had a residency in one of the past summers, and students were able to meet her and like walk through her studio, and she talked about her work a little bit. So some of you guys might know better than I do what the inside of these studios is like. Okay, and then here's a short video for you guys to see of some of the Rome Prize residents speaking on the program. And again, it's open to all forms of art and humanities, not just artists, but scholars too. So here's a glimpse at the program.
Well, the Rhodes Prize has long been a dream of mine in my field of studies.
Within the field, it's just an incredible honor, always has been historically.
I went to work one day and a friend of mine, an artist, told me to apply, and I did, and I got it.
Because my work isn't specifically about Rome, it's sort of obsessively American. I didn't have any reason to think a place like Italy would want to host me.
My expectation was to come and to learn as much as I could about my specialized topic from everybody who was going to be here.
I came in with a half-completed piece. The idea of that piece was very much integrated with sound recording throughout my travels. So when I came, I knew that my experience with the city would play an integral part with the composition.
The thing that I really wanted to do was working on a novel that I've been trying to start for many years.
I'm really interested in language, and I'm really interested in cadence, more specifically. But there was no way I was going to dominate a language enough to express myself in it. I needed a tag as part of graffiti. So instead of writing a song, I decided to write an alphabet.
One of the particularly inspiring moments is when Kim Bowes, the current Mellon professor, and we led a tour down to Pompeii, which is the site that I've been working at since 2005. And it was an incredible experience to be able to go to Pompeii, a site that I knew so well, and to try to lead this tour, but that to walk away having learned so much more from them than I think they ever learned from me. It was I think it really highlighted to me just what the American Academy is about.
Getting to talk with people in various disciplines throughout the year has been incredibly inspiring and motivating.
Just the extraordinary perspective of working on a project, a very specialized project from a community like this, but really helped me to sort of see a different way of looking at this topic that I'd so highly focused upon.
I've been close with some visual artists and some architects and some musicians and people just working in forms that are different from mine.
What I'm doing is I'm trying to write about ancient Roman life in which there is a story. And so I've learned a lot from the authors who are here, the poets who are here.
To be around historians who are trying to narrate great swaths of time and somehow make them seem legible and human. It's almost watching the process that I know go backwards, and it can throw me just off center enough to make me look at my work in a new way.
No one's able to see Rome in a day, not even a year. It just takes a long time to get through it. There's a lot of things here, a lot of wealth here.
Of all the gifts that come with being a Rome Prize Fellow, I think it's the gift of time, which is so incredibly special. And to come here and to really think about my work has really enabled me to focus upon my work, to learn about modern Rome as much as ancient Rome. And then at the end of the day, to then see it through the eyes of another fellow giving a shop talk. It's been an incredibly rich year.
One of the important things about this place is the particular character that each class finds as a group.
I think that the relationships cultivated here with the fellows, with the staff and visiting artists and everyone who's come through here, long term, they will be incredibly important.
I had quick, fast friendships that just grew and grew and deepened.
I don't think I would be making an alphabet if I wasn't here. I don't think I would be drawing if I wasn't here. I don't think I would have made paper if I wasn't here. I don't think it was just a time. It was also being here. Being in Rome, being at the academy, being in Italy. All those things have affected and will continue to affect who I am.
And another international one is the Royal Academy of Art in London. Now, this is both a museum and a school. So, on some levels of this building is space for the museum, space for art galleries and the public to view exhibitions, and then in the lower back part of the building is actually a school for a small number of students each year. It's really an excellent opportunity for any emerging to mid-career artist. You can apply as a BFA graduate. So you have the option. You can apply kind of at any stage of your career. You could apply as an MFA graduate for the program, or right after you leave UNCC. You can apply for several different options of a residency. They do a 3-year residency. They also do a 1-year art residency that's called the Star Fellowship. And that involves a year-long program for American nationals, which provides a bursary of £26,000. So my math is terrible, but that's probably about $30,000. And they provide you a studio at the Royal Academy schools to support the development of your practice. They also give you living space in London. And I'm showing these to you guys. I know they're highly competitive programs, but these are goals. If you applied, for 5 or 10 years, there's a chance that you might get selected to some of these. Everything's kind of a crapshoot when it comes to art. You never know. So I think it's good to be aware of some of these top billing institutions and the programs that they offer. Okay, so like I showed you with the Rome School, this is a short video about the Royal Academy of Art in London.
In 1768, a group of artists and architects came together to form the Royal Academy of Arts. They were driven to create an independent institution that would be run by artists who would be elected by their peers. The Academy will provide a venue for exhibitions and lectures open to the public and establish an art school through which skills and knowledge could be passed on to future generations. For 250 years, these artists, known as Royal Academicians, have been shaping this country's understanding, appreciation and creation of visual art. The Royal Academy remains an independent and privately funded charity. It continues to host world-class exhibitions and debates and provide free art education for a new generation of artists. In our 250th birthday year, we've unveiled a major transformation. We've united our buildings on Piccadilly and Burlington Gardens into one vast cultural campus through designs by internationally acclaimed architect and academician Sir David Chipperfield. New public galleries and displays reveal treasures from our historic collection and provide a showcase for works by art students and today's leading artists. A 250-seat lecture theatre and a purpose-built learning centre allow many more people to take part in learning and debates about visual culture. And new facilities enable us to provide a better welcome for our friends and visitors. With the new RA, we've opened up the Royal Academy as never before, creating a new home for art and ideas in the very heart of London.
Okay, so another international residency program is the Day Atelier program in Amsterdam in the Netherlands. So atelier simply means, it's Dutch for the French word atelier, which means school. And so this is a 2-year school that provides fully supported time, studios, and visiting artists for you. So it's the kind of program they offer classes, and it's an incredible, free experience for you, but they don't award a degree or anything like that. Okay, and here's a short video, about 3 minutes, about the program. And here, I'll share it with you now.
The Ateliers is located in Amsterdam, one of the hotspots of the European art world. The city is enjoying a cosmopolitan reputation of multicultural tolerance, high living standards, and a curiosity towards new art. Amsterdam has a dense infrastructure of top-class museums where the masters of Dutch art can be admired. Close to these museums, you find the ateliers. Housed in a beautiful 19th century building, this famous institution offers 20 studios. The art of the future is being made here. What makes the atelier special is the frequency and intensity of the studio visits. During 2 years, young artists are engaged in an ongoing discussion with their tutors, guest tutors, and other artists working in the building. We strongly believe that artists learn from other artists. The team includes painter Marlene Dumas, one of the world's leading figurative painters. In the 1970s, Dumas was a participant in our studio program herself.
For me personally, it was very important because all the academies that you could go to mainly had big professors where the professor was the main person, and then you have to listen to one person's opinion about what art is. The ateliers had a different way of approaching this. You are immediately confronted with criticism, but from different points of view.
Now she is one of the tutor artists. Her large retrospective show toured in Asia, Africa, and America, including the Museum of Modern Art in New York. Willem de Rooij is also a tutor artist at the ateliers. His astonishing exhibition at the Neue Nationalgalerie was one of the highlights in Berlin last year. Another tutor is filmmaker Fiona Tan. She represented the Netherlands at the Venice Biennale.
The Atelier is small but incredibly efficient. It's a place founded by artists, run by artists, for artists. Young artists who come here, they get a lot of attention. They get studio visits from permanent staff and from visiting artists every Tuesday. And that really helps them. They also get fantastic studios and the possibility to live and work and concentrate entirely on the development of their art for 2 years.
Okay, and then last one is the Xochitl residency in Lake on Lake Chapala in Mexico. So, and this one I'm just sharing with you as part of my personal experience. So before I came to UNCC, this was back in 2015. I found this opportunity on the call for entry website, which many of you guys probably know. I can talk more about that. Um, I found this opportunity on the call for entry website to do a residency in Mexico. So it's a residency on Lake Chapala. This couple founded the residency. One was a real estate developer, one and an artist, and one was a venture capitalist. And when they moved from the States to Mexico, they started this residency in Chapala. So some of you guys will know this far better than I, but Mexico has kind of like two major, like really major cities, Guadalajara and Mexico City. And Guadalajara is on the west side of Mexico. And so to get to Lake Chapala, you fly into Guadalajara, which is like something like a 2 hour flight from Dallas. And then you take a 2.5 hour flight to Guadalajara. And once you arrive there, it's about a 45-minute taxi cab ride to Lake Chapala. And Lake Chapala is the largest lake in Mexico. It's beautiful, it's in the mountains. And, originally when I'd been reading about the opportunity, I thought, like, Mexico in the summer, is it going to be just incredibly hot? But because the mountain isn't, the lake is in the mountains and the elevation is so high, the temperature is really pretty cool. It was like in the 60s and 70s. And the town that they put me in, Chapala, is right on the edge of the lake with the mountains all around, and you can kind of see how like picturesque it is. I ended up, and I'm just telling you guys a little bit about this so you can hear like personal experience of what one of these residencies is like. Um, and I'm hoping it makes it feel like more attainable too that way. But this is where they put me up. So I was the youngest by far. The other residencies were like, in their 50s. They put us in a house, but the nice thing about it was we were all together, but we had our own houses and studio spaces. So, they all weren't connected. We had our own living and workspace. So there was a poet who stayed in the house on the top level. I was kind of here in this second level in my own house. And then they put a woman who is a current professor at the California College of Art in Berkeley, and she made these hyper realist drawings of like junkyards and cars being crushed. They were really cool. So I stayed here for about a month, and I was also a part-time online instructor for some community colleges in Charlotte. I was teaching kind of like intro level classes in art appreciation, and I was able to teach online remotely while I was doing the residency. So it ended up being a pretty good gig for me. And let me just say, originally I had some initial reservations about traveling to Guadalajara. There had recently been like some stories in the news about like kidnappings and the drug cartel. And one of the residents who had been selected actually turned the opportunity down. So there were like fewer residents of us than they were supposed to be. But I think it's just worth saying that a lot of that feeling or that trepidation is simply like sensationalizing by the media and trying to find like the big story to report on. Once I was there, I felt as safe as anywhere. You know, my partner came to visit me, and we really didn't feel like we were ever in any kind of danger. So again, I think, you know, when you apply to these things, you have to just be, you know, and I'm talking, of course, about like after quarantining and isolation and all this stuff has ended, hopefully sooner than later. But when you do decide to take these residencies on, you just have to be in a headspace that you're going to like be getting into something different and kind of have a spirit of adventure about it. And this is a little space that they gave me outside of the studio, which is a nice balcony overlooking the lake. And I'd have coffee there in the morning and like tequila there in the afternoons with other residents. And it was a great space for us to get together and kind of share what we did. And again, we had the option to either speak and do critiques and talk about our art, or be isolated and kind of left alone to make work. And the person who ran this residency had zero expectations. So um, this couple, they paid for everything except for the travel. I did have to buy my plane ticket, but they paid for the studio and workspace. They gave us like a $1,000 stipend for the month that I was working there. It was a little limited with resources. They didn't have like proper ceramics and, like other digital resources and design resources that some of you guys might want. But certainly, if you were willing to undertake a residency where you could just have private studio space and work on, drawings and writing, or, more simple kind of fine art stuff like painting, where your resources can be a little more limited, then it was a great, great experience. Sometimes when you do residencies, they expect, and I'm just kind of flicking through some of these, a handbook that they gave us to make the experience a little bit more approachable and digestible and all that kind of stuff. But with some of these residencies, the organizers will want you to give a piece of artwork at the end of it, or maybe you'll create work for an exhibition. So they're kind of like getting something out of it. And then other organizers ask for absolutely nothing. And this one was wonderful because the couple who ran it said, we basically just want you guys to be supported as artists. So if you want to make work, that's fine. If you want to make nothing and simply have the time and space to think, perhaps think about a series that you might make in the future, then that's fine too. So there were zero expectations and just full support from all of this. They went a long way to make this potentially intimidating thing a lot more manageable and doable. And, like especially in a foreign country, as I know, like when you're a student, sometimes it takes a little courage to like travel to and also live abroad for an extended stay. It can just take a little bit of like bravery to do it. So certainly I encourage that. And this kind of ends that. So this ends the first portion about international residencies that I wanted to share with you guys. And in the next segment here, in the next video, I'll talk more about some national and regional artist residency opportunities, including Penland, Elsewhere, and the Women's Studio Workshop, among some others. And then we'll get a little more into your assignment. Okay, take care.